to the Crypto Unicorns bi-weekly Town Hall number 30 with Aron Beierschmitt, Crypto Unicorn CEO and co-founder. This is our first Town Hall event for February 2023. Come celebrate the month of love with us. For those who missed it, Town Halls are now on a bi-weekly cadence that twice a month instead of weekly. Half of the Town Hall events will be handled by Aron, who is amazing at letting us visualize long term of CU. The other half of town hall events will be handled by members of the internal team who can provide deeper knowledge on specific things such as game design and game economy. In all other aspects, the town hall will be in a similar format as the ones we previously held. As always, we've got Aron here, ready to spill the tea and spread the hype with Aron's updates. Good morning, Aron. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, Sparkly. Thank you, as always, for the wonderful intro. Are you ready to dive in?
Oh, are we ever?
All right, couple of, I guess, pretty major announcements. So first, on the governance update, obviously very happy to have seen all of the community discussion and engagement around this kind of critical proposal, or series of proposals, I guess I should say, all involving different ideas around reducing emissions. Certainly my belief, as I've voiced in the forum and on Discord, that an emission reduction is necessary to position ourselves for growth. I'm very much looking forward to answering any questions today as the community preps for this critical vote, which I believe is likely to go live given the current position of the council. Okay, now let's talk about marketing. First, I've made some changes to the team. Brian has stepped down as our CMO and will be working in a more focused partnerships and BD role going forward. He's been on the ground working through a series of partnerships, including the recently announced Chubby Corns, obviously the thing that led to the Pirates Nations Twitter space, and many more opportunities on that front. In his place, I've hired Christina Taylor, who joins as our Director of Marketing. She has over 13 years of experience exclusively in gaming. So started at Leapfrog, went to Electronic Arts, was at Big Fish, was at Sony. More recently, she's worked on real money and skill-based gaming, which I think has a really high overlap with Web3 gaming. I'm personally working to on-ramp her into the company and get her up to speed. As I've stated before, until she's up to speed, I'm owning all of our marketing efforts and our marketing pipeline. Speaking of pipeline, we've got a number of things in progress. So one is going to be kind of continuing to expand the Great Corn Drop via targeted and direct partnerships. So we obviously have Chubby Corns just got announced. The Pirate Nations Twitter space was last week. In addition to those kind of targeted direct partnership campaigns, we're also working to target partners via traditional performance marketing channels. There's a really interesting set of opportunities that's kind of building up in the wake of the mobile advertising collapse. Apple taking away the ability to target players at a device level, which used to make it pretty easy to find new players for games and apps of all kinds, has really left this gap where there's a lot of inventory. We call it remnant inventory sitting around. And there's a number of companies, including Superfine and Spindle, that are kind of bridging Web3 address data and account data with Web2 remnant advertising. So you get this opportunity to kind of say, hey, I just want to find these individuals, right, in this cheaper advertising inventory. And it's actually kind of interesting because it could lead to really high signal. And these partners that we're spinning up have worked with groups like Champions Ascension and Thetan Arena, which certainly have been able to scale. I don't think with respect to Thetan there was sustainability on the economy front, but they certainly could scale. So I'm pretty excited to kick off a series of more traditional performance marketing campaigns. This is obviously Christina's bread and butter and something that she and I will collaborate on in tandem with our partners Spindle and Superfine. I think we also have room to build awareness with crypto natives. You're going to continue to find myself and other members of our team in more and more Twitter spaces, especially over the next few months as we have all these kind of critical launches on our plates. Um, as I mentioned before, listen, marketing is my primary focus, and I'll continue, um, and it will continue to be until I'm kind of confident that Christina is up to speed. But we're pretty confident in her hire. She has had a lot of like army of one positions early on at companies teeing up their initial growth strategies. And again, I think the most recent experience that she has in skill-based and real money gaming has a great overlap with what we're building here at Crypto Unicorns. So I'm excited. She starts Monday. Already have her kind of multi-page day one brief so that she can kind of get up to speed. Should be exciting. Okay, let's talk about launch timeline and kind of everything that's in the pipeline right now. I guess to start, in January, we were targeting both a February user experience polish release, kind of hinged around the farm user experience upgrade, which has been previewed and kind of voted on by the community, and then a separate mid-March release for our jousting feature. Yesterday, I approved a plan which kind of makes the most of our QA resources and avoids the distraction of a February client release. We'll still have the tuning update today and a tuning update on February 23rd to continue to move the meta forward. But mid-March is going to now be our V2.0 launch build, which is a combination of both the jousting feature release 1.0, as well as the farming user experience enhancements and many other polish improvements. Just to name a few, many of which we've discussed before, we're talking mythic filtering, stats filters on the inventory and assign unicorn UIs. We're going to be doing smart energy sorting, so you only see unicorns that have enough energy to complete the action in the first place. That's getting more and more important over time. There'll be kind of a quick refill of energy button where you can basically just click, the button will say needs energy, and it will just automatically spend the number of berries to set the unicorn up to complete the required action. So just drastically kind of continuing to reduce the number of clicks as you move forward, as well as increase the smart filtering of unicorns within the menus that you're selecting. Obviously, everyone's seen the new farm user experience improvement with things like favorite seeds, etc. And I know people are really excited about that. So is that it? Oh, yeah. And the last piece is going to be persisting workshop tabs, which we've discussed before, and making sure we obviously persist just general filters. If you're filtering for mythics and running through gathering, right, that filter will persist as you move through menus. And the final piece, which I'm really excited about, is just enhanced RMP spending flows. So let's say you're out of resources on a thing that you need. You can just click effectively that red set says, hey, red 100 plain berries on a nursery UI, right? It will immediately pop the RMP. You can make your purchase, close that menu, still be on the nursery menu, complete your action without having to basically close through whatever you're doing, go to the RMP and come back. In addition, if you try to complete an action and don't have enough, it will just pop the RMP with the not enough required resource in place of the not enough required resource modal. So I'm really excited about all of this kind of coming at once. Again, I approved the plan to go to one major release, obviously continuing tuning pushes every 2 weeks. I do think it is in the best interest of our QA resources, especially when you expand that scope to second party and kind of everything else that we have going on. So again, one release helps align all the resources. I definitely trust the team has made the right decision on that front. And again, we're still having a release, a tuning push today, and we'll have another tuning push on February 23rd to carry forward designs, plans for this month. Okay, so don't fret. I guess we have a ton of other crap in the pipeline, and I mean that in the terms of like rainbow unicorn poop level crap. The Delphi podcast should drop today or tomorrow. I'm still waiting to hear back from Pierce, checking all of our random Telegram threads. Yep, still waiting to hear back. It was super impressive, and I really enjoyed going on there. I think jousting showed very well. So be prepared to check that out. Keep in mind that was January, so things have improved even further since that recording. And keep in mind, it's also just kind of a small glimpse of jousting. We ran an 8 unicorn tournament to keep things, reasonably time sensitive for purposes of the pod. And I think it was fun. We got to see a couple of knockdowns. We got one recovery that didn't really matter because it was at the end. And anyway, it's cool. We didn't get any double knockdowns. We didn't get a sudden death rally or anything like that. So there's a lot of complexity and depth under the hood that isn't necessarily going to be shown over the course of one tournament. But I'm very, very happy with how it showed. And Pierce and Jan were certainly impressed. They hadn't seen it since October. So that was a big win. We have a jousting CGI trailer, which kind of carries forward the narrative from the farm sim. So you're going to get the introduce a couple of new characters, but some of the old favorites come back, including our, my one and only favorite Buddy. So the jousting CGI trailer will drop February 15th. So mid-February, basically leading up 30-day sprint towards the jousting launch. I hate teasing an announcement to tease an announcement, but we're going to have a very big hiring announcement separate of Christina on the marketing front. This is someone who is very well known within our industry. I'm extremely excited to have them coming on board, and I'll kind of leave it at that. But be on the lookout for a pretty big announcement here, probably towards the end of next week, as we're trying to do some PR around it, given the notoriety of this person, again, within our overall industry. Next, we've got a jousting gameplay drip campaign. There's a ton of awesome just in-engine captured shots, literally just from the WebGL build that show really well. So we're creating a whole series of drip campaigns. Obviously, jousting gameplay, just look and feel, has improved a lot since the last gameplay trailer. And so in addition to the CGI kind of fun trailer we'll push out and share via socials, the idea is also to reinforce how far the gameplay footage itself has come. And we'll be dripping that out via social channels throughout this month and into next in the lead up to launch. We have an updated game guide coming as well. I think generally the organization of our game guide could be improved. The CM team is working very hard to restructure that information in a way that's a little bit more friendly to new players and try to better surface some of the wonderful video guides and things that we've had for quite some time that I just don't think are really put in the right place such that people can find them easily. It'll also be kind of the running guide for like tokenomics and things, right? So if the emission change vote does get approved by the DAO, we'll make that change within this kind of new guide. We'll also be updating the sections to include, the investor and team token locks being pushed back to March 2024. And so anyway, it will kind of become the one source of truth. We'll still have links in the archive to the old white papers. We'll always kind of keep those public, but the idea is to make this kind of the source of truth for all information and all things corns going forward. Let's see, more things. 2 new corn drop campaigns pretty extensively. I think the big thing now is we're getting endorsements from all the projects that we're dropping to, so we should see higher and higher levels of claim or higher claim rates than we saw with the initial test of Sunflower Land and Sandbox. We'll do at least one Web 2 to Web 3 kind of conversion campaign, likely via our partner Superfine. And then, of course, with the launch of Jousting, we'll kind of kick off all the preseason activity, which you're about to get more details on. I'm pretty excited about how preseason is going to function. Give us a few weeks to see how things are working out in the wild and at scale, probably make a meta and tuning change at the end, and then obviously that'll lead into the big season 1 kickoff. So my intent is obviously to broadcast the Jousting's launch and do some initial marketing and things, but we're going to be really trying to gear up towards season 1, with the preseason being more of an opportunity for our community to come in, check things out, learn it, and begin to strategize for the larger seasons. But be on the lookout for the preseason details. There's a pretty cool set and structure of tournaments where you're kind of grinding throughout the week to win tickets that allow you to enter weekend tournaments for higher prizes and value. We're going to be doing some fun things like giving out a little bit of USDC as some prizes and stuff for these early pools. And again, testing, kind of iterating in lead up to season 1. Cool. All of this leads me basically to April. April is going to be our big kind of tournament month. We're going to have the Team RPG playtest launch. When this new hire gets announced, you're going to see very much a natural fit between them and anything kind of skill and tournament based. So that's going to be very, very exciting. It's one of the reasons that despite the fact that Team RPG is pretty much ready, we're kind of going to wait to ensure we can kind of build out and structure a real compelling set of playtest milestones and tournaments that are going to lead up ultimately to the governance vote on whether or not we do match 3 Team RPG or auto battle Team RPG. There's already kind of division inside of the company between those battle loops, and I kind of expect the same within the community. But it should be a lot of fun to run these playtests, gather feedback, and ultimately let the community decide on the direction there. In addition to that, we'll have Unicorn Party launching and be doing and hosting a series of tournaments around those skill-based PvP games. We're having a shitload of fun testing those internally. I think they're going to fit the bill in terms of being these fun ways to just have a few sessions every day, right, where you can grind it out. I think some people will probably play more than others, especially if you really get addicted to the loops. But again, we're having a lot of fun playtesting those. So with March being the launch of Jousting, April is designed to be the month of tournaments. So Team RPG, Unicorn Party, obviously will end kind of the initial preseason with Jousting and transition into season 1. So you can expect us to be really pushing on additional Jousting specific Great Corn Drop campaigns and partnerships. I should also call out that March is the Game Developers Conference. We're going to have a pretty reasonably big presence there, kind of aping off what Polygon is doing for GDC. And so that's going to be a pretty big moment for us with Jousting kind of lining up with GDC. Should be out right before it. Sweet. That's a lot of updates. I guess to sum things up, like this is really our moment. I think as a community, we must make the most of this and inflect growth here and now. I think we've built a strong economic foundation that is primed and ready. And I very much look forward to kind of taking this exciting step forward with all of you. Carla, Sparkly, that's it for me. Let's get to the questions.
Yes, Sparkly, yes. Okay.
Sparkly,
So,
yes.
yes. All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. We have 3 questions per person. Any questions related specifically to your account or a Zendesk issue, please reach out to us on the Monster channel. We will no longer be entertaining any ticket-related questions. Not only can we not directly address your situation because of privacy concerns, but we also want to make the best out of every town hall. To ask a question in voice, please press the request to speak button. The button looks like a raised hand and you can queue up at any time. Once we accept your request, you'll see a green bar at the top of your Discord. Click accept to begin speaking. We also have written questions in channel on the Town Hall 30 thread. You can find this channel in the events and activities category. Take note that we prioritize spoken questions over written ones. You can also head on stage and ask any question that you may find there. First up, though, are the anonymous questions. We have a lot today. We accept a maximum of 5 anonymous question askers per town hall, and that definitely filled up. Okay, here is the first set of questions. So, how many devs are actively employed at LG and working full time on CU? Also, how much of the CU dev work is outsourced?
We have roughly 91 people, and I'd say there's 75% employees and 25% contractors. I think out of that, this isn't counting any of the second party teams, by the way. I think out of that, you've got roughly 26 engineers. And again, the ratio is about 75% full-time to contractor vendor.
All right, thank you so much. Next up is What's the story behind native delegation? It was initially indicated to be available upon launch, but now it has no timeline. Was this a technical reason or a tactical reason?
So delegation does have a timeline. It's the next release after jousting. You can kind of see loose timeline in how we've organized the public roadmap, right? And in the sequence at which things are organized into that roadmap. If you were around and following the discussion around delegation in Q4, we put the design in front of the community. The community signed off on that design and signed off on the idea that they wanted to see jousting prioritized over delegation. I do know that a big chunk of the blockchain work for delegation is in progress and nearly complete. And at that point, there's work on our server team to effectively hook up those new blockchain interfaces. And then there's a small amount of client work with the new UI around delegating, spinning up a wallet that you, of course, custody and then delegating that account to another person. Obviously, you can spin up as many wallets as you would like to delegate to individuals in that fashion. And so anyway, if that individual or whoever asked wants more details, I'm sure a CM can point them at the direction of all the delegation conversation as well as documentation from our team. So its timeline remains what it was since we last discussed after jousting, and specifically the next release following jousting.
All right. So yeah, just give us a ping and we'll be able to give the information that you need about a delegation. Okay, the next question is please, well, this is really a question. It's more like a request. Please make the Shadow Corn figurines available to all Shadow Corn holders. Sell it as a set and include the Shadow Corn egg as well.
Over time, we will likely release merchandise of all kinds, including merchandise for Shadow Corns. I think the current set is the current set. There was a kind of fixed budget, and we wanted to test this and see if it mattered and if people even cared about it at all. As we've seen several times, we're kind of tired of running down and, making kind of, I'll just leave it at that. The current set is the current set. There's not going to be any changes to that. They're already well into production. We're going to see how the distribution mechanism that we plan works, gather feedback, and then continue forward. We are working on merch as we have been forever, and there is some progress on that front, and likely we will have Shadow Corn merch available for people that just want it. Obviously, we wanted to specifically reward early hatchers and holders, and that is the intent of this initial exclusive early production of figurines.
All right, nice. Next up, we have someone else saying, what is the plan to onboard DAU during jousting release? What will be the impact on quest rewards when Poop Scroll is updated, if ever?
I feel like I've already addressed plenty on the marketing front with respect to jousting, so I'm not going to answer that again. And I don't know the answer to this other design-specific question. So that'll just be something that a designer either needs to throw me if they're in here right now or ask it to CM and we'll get back to you.
All right, we will get back to you on that. Next up, any plans
Oh,
to
well,
add...
okay, hang on. This
Oh.
T3 materials on the RMP issue I do want to address. So, the reality is the more shit we add to the RMP, the harder it is to tune and balance because we give you a live market and high agency to do what you want within that market. So, there is benefit to us not ever adding the highest tier materials. There is certainly some discussion around tier 2. But even with the changes you're going to see that have already been announced, we're removing a lot of the lower tier materials from quests so that, you're not necessarily questing to both claim RBW and then dump materials into the RMP and things, right? You have to always think about the complexity of tuning and balancing a system in which players have high agency and which we run a real-time 24/7 market. So I see a lot of players rather flippantly just saying, oh, add materials to the market and stuff. Once we do that, there's kind of no going back. And there is a specific reason that we keep certainly the higher tier materials out. There is absolutely a discussion around adding some of the lower tier materials. Um, but again, there's like a very specific reason and concern that we have. It is not technical at all. It is design related and a worry around losing that additional tuning and balance tool that we currently have with respect to the tier 3 materials. So I see this asked a lot. I wanted to address it here. Again, there's some discussion on maybe some tier 2 materials, but I don't think you should expect to see anything higher than that on the RMP anytime soon.
All right. Okay, next up we have somebody asking, will there be new hires to support growth? Yes, there will be, and it's been discussed earlier. Another question is, how do you feel about us as a community and this project so far?
How do I feel about the community so far? We really quickly aggregated a group of people that care very deeply about this project. And I think I've certainly got a lot better at dealing with community feedback, which oftentimes is rather emotionally given to us. And I think I've gotten much better at personally just handling that and always taking the side of like, this is an individual who may disagree with something that we've done or is upset by something we failed at, or just being very passionate about a certain thing. And the fact that they're passionate about a thing that the team and I created and work on and work very hard at is a great thing. And so a great example is all of the debate around this emissions reduction. The fact that we can have a debate as a community that only at times devolved into like real tribal kind of us against them. But I saw a lot of reasoned debate really from both sides. And that to me is just a fascinating kind of experiment that we're running right now with CU and this idea like, can we make collective action decisions as a community that ultimately benefit the DAO over the long term? And I've received some criticism from other founders in the space in kind of private conversations with respect to how much we let the community vote on. And I think we've now seen multiple instances in which the community has actually voted against their short-term interest in favor of their long-term interests. And that to me really indicates that we have a group of people here that really do care and want the best for CU. And I think it will be difficult and it's going to be a challenge of the growth phase to maintain that stable core as we onboard a lot of new members. I think it will get harder and harder to continue to keep that vision. I think it's one of the benefits of the distribution of tokens to date in that anyone who's been accumulating supply of RBW, has this really deep incentive to see this thing succeed. And there's very high alignment that our early adopters have, in particular with the team and the investors who are locked up over the longest time frame of any token holders. And so I'm pretty happy with how things have been set up. Obviously, I care a lot about growth, but in that growth, I don't want to see us lose the kind of passion that we have in the current community. So that's my long-winded rant on what I think about the community so far.
Yeah, pretty fair. I think at the end of it all, we're all just a bunch of people who love our unicorns and have our friendship.
Unicorn.
Yes. Okay. Last up from this anonymous person, you mentioned earlier that new player demand could be a challenge. How can the community assist?
Yeah, for sure. This has been a frustration of mine. Like we're kind of seeing it is more challenging to grow than I expected. I expected it to be hard. I didn't expect it necessarily to be this hard, and I didn't expect to have to go to traditional performance user acquisition channels so early. I think early on, I expected communities to be less tribal. I think we saw with Sunflower Land and the low claim rate of those badges, despite the fact that we were giving, significant value out as a carrot. the combination of just being tribal, the combination of being concerned, rightfully so, with, is this a spammy token? Is this something that's going to steal from me? I think doing these direct partnerships where we have like, Katrina on our side speaking with the Chubby Corns founder, right, getting that direct endorsement from them, like we expect these things to continue. Seeing some of the gift to corn events and seeing our own founders and star corns look to exploit those events, very kind of saddening just generally, right? I get it's human nature. If I give you any, we're building in the dark forest, if I give you any opportunity to exploit it. But even seeing private chat threads and things where the community was kind of talking about that kind of stuff, even if you didn't act on it, it's just a little disappointing. So how can the community help? You can go out and find real fucking people to give these badges to and encourage them to play the game and be there like big brother, big sister, and on-ramping them into the experience. Like that is the best possible thing that I think you could do that drives this grassroots campaign to help us scale and build real DAO into the organization, right? Like we only count a new DAO in our analytics if a wallet connects to the game that has both unicorns and land right now, right? So we don't count anyone just connecting a wallet just has a unicorn or doesn't have assets. And so any new DAO that you see is an earned DAO, is somebody who has the assets necessary to play and is coming into play. And so anyway, with Polygon Studios continuing to push and retweet our campaigns and things of that nature, like we're in a position where I think we're going to continue to kind of learn and improve. But as for what the community can do, like don't exploit our shit and focus on these direct, I have a friend that wants to play, let's onboard them, right? One of the beauties of this being on chain and all the data that we collect post a player connecting is we kind of know, like, was this an engaged player? Was this somebody that just clearly was farming rewards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So we're learning as we go. But generally getting out there and helping drive these grassroots campaigns is like great. I think one of the challenges that we do have as a community is we don't have a lot of people with massive Twitter followings. And so a lot of our Twitter activation campaigns, in my mind, fall flat. It's nobody's fault. I don't have much of a following either. You're going to see, especially with this new hire, that change and change very quickly. But yeah, it's definitely a struggle. I do think that setting our token price up to be this kind of beacon of light and hope in the current market, as it has been, I would say, over the last week, certainly. We need more of that. That acts as a really positive signal. And I do think tied with awareness campaigns, tied with the great corn drop campaigns, like we should actually see higher conversion and success with those campaigns and really try and build this snowball effect that should help drive the success on the marketing front.
All right. Okay, so y'all know what to do. Okay, last question, last anonymous question is, are there any plans to relook the benefits of upgrading the stables and the nursery? The cost to benefit ratio for these is so much worse than everything else that not many bother leveling these, especially the stables. Giving more benefits at higher levels may make people more interested in leveling these and burning materials in the process.
The short answer is yes.
Did we get a long answer?
No.
Okay. All right, I tried community. Okay, now we're going to the spoken and written questions. First up, we have 404. Please come on over to speak.
Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Hey.
Aaron, that 20-minute intro was very informative, and I appreciate that. And everyone that I know really enjoyed that, and we look forward to hearing about the new hires.
Thank you. It is going to be a very, very exciting month. Listen, I have heard the win marketing, win get better at marketing, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like we didn't really have a live operatable build until we shipped quests, and then we didn't really have a globally marketable build until the December release with all of the massive performance improvements. And then it's like we went on a 2-week break, and I had a month of paternity leave, and it's February 9th. So I do want to push a little bit back on the community that we're not doing enough. I think we haven't been sharing as much. And now that I'm kind of back, again, this is my full focus. So I'm super happy to hear that 404, and definitely excited to kind of get this ball rolling and just be very, very, very regimented with the process by which we go out and drip these updates out. And my hope is it just kind of acts as a signal to people who have either ignored us or just, weren't interested in farming or whatever. Like, the signal should be there's something for everyone here, right? We're about to have our Axie Origin moment with this Team RPG test. I think both of the loops are more fun than Axie Origin just straight up as a starting point. And then there's going to be this enormously fun opportunity to kind of, really work and iterate with the community. So anyway, I'm kind of grandstanding and you haven't even asked your question, but I appreciate that comment on the marketing front. It's clearly a focus of ours and a place that we're looking to improve on very, very rapidly.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing that you didn't mention in all of that was Shadowcorns. So
Oh yeah, that's a good thing. I appreciate you bringing that up. So the current target is to reveal the Shadowcorn roadmap just after Jousting's release. It will include details on the tribes front, and as we've kind of stated before, it's really important. It's an internal target to make sure that when we deliver this roadmap, you're getting the kind of all the way to the end game, right? The elder game state of that feature, so that you can see how everything interoperates and builds together, and really see how we're setting things up as this kind of tug of war, this eternal tug of war between the Shadowcorn holders, which will always be limited given the set of 3,000 and the overall unicorn kind of community. And we're playing with a lot of ideas, looking at, I've always been a big fan of Wolf Game. Obviously, it was initially inspired by Wizards and Dragons, which was kind of a Wolf Game sort of clone after Wolf Game's initial exploit. We're now looking very closely at kind of how Wolf Game works. It certainly won't be a clone of that, but there's a lot of, I think, really compelling ideas that I think help with economic sustainability, creating this kind of pressure cooker and tug of war between the players itself. So internally, our target is kind of like by the end of February, design product teams are kind of signed off, give the art team a little bit of time to do some fun concepts. Obviously, we have a lot of work that hasn't been shown around things like the Minion Forge, the minions themselves, and you can expect a pretty significant update right after the kind of Jousting release is the current plan. So I appreciate the patience and time that the community is kind of giving us to really iron out that feature through the Elder game, such that everybody can kind of look at that and go, okay, I see why these are significant in the IP and the lore over time. It's significant from the perspective of their ability to capture chunks of the economy at certain times, particularly during things, like raids or attacks. And I'm going to see how that layers into tribes and see how tribes creates tribe v tribe conflict and hierarchy and tension. And again, kind of pivots us from a farm sim that right now, you can't just have an infinite progression farm sim and expect that to be sustainable over time. And so tribes coupled with, Shadowcorns kind of being that yin yang that forces the PvP wheel is how we're planning to put all that together.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Cool. All right, so that was my first question. My second question is exchange listings. It's always I always feel like people, don't really, they play with tokens and, we have, and they invest in tokens and not the game. And we kind of see that with, the, our own personal, reward staking program that we have. But, so exchange listings in general, I always think draw a little bit of eyes, and we've got this almost 100% increase in token price in this past couple weeks here, which is awesome, and everyone's real excited about that too, I'm sure. And then we also have this emission reduction proposal going forward to Snapshot here probably pretty soon. And so I was wondering anything on the exchange listings front.
Yeah, that one's a bit of a struggle. I think the best way to describe it is, listen, you look at CoinEx, I'll just go to CoinGecko, so I've got the latest. Like, yes, or in the last 24 hours, CoinEx drove 15,000 volume. And then we've got Bitmart, down here at the bottom, driving only 10K in volume. And Bitmart was the one that's much larger than CoinEx that, we paid, the listing fee on, right? And we have a market maker, Flowdesk, another Delphi portfolio company working with us on. And it's like, what? And anyone who's really paying attention knows these two Uniswap V3 pools have like tiny ass little liquidity. It's concentrated though, and they're obviously driving even more value than Bitmart. So there's a little bit of this like, okay, we've really struggled with the original strategy of like get listed on these tier 2 exchanges, and then, hopefully that helps with the higher tier exchanges. I think the best path forward is just going to be continuing to show volume increases. That's all the exchanges care about. If we want more free listings, we simply need to drive and show consistency in our volume. And I really believe that it's less of a BD partnerships problem, and it is more of a growth and volume problem on the token. And again, just looking at this experience of CoinEx listing us for free with zero involvement for us, right, versus Bitmart, and they're driving, more volume. So I would rather see organic listings occur off the back of strong token traction. One thing that I come back to a lot is just looking at, if you go to CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap and you look at the categories and you look at all these game projects, like one of the things that gives me a lot of confidence is you look at all the tokens that are above us in this list, right? Many of them don't have games released. Many of them are, some of the games that are live, their economies have collapsed. And so I continue to believe that there's enormous upside potential on the value of RBW, just given our relative placement versus many other coins in the space. And so if over the next 6 months, we can really show positive increases in volume, especially relative to other tokens in the market, I think we'll naturally begin to see more and more listings. And I just have to believe that that will work better. The only groups that we're currently targeting are kind of the big ones like Coinbase and Binance and stuff, where I just think, yeah, a listing there is meaningful for a number of reasons. But I think the original strategy of trying to go tier 2 and then to tier 1 is not working.
All right, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I mean, growth is always, we like it to be the natural, and that's I get it. But yeah, like the Coinbase and Binance would always just like get these amazing amount of people looking at us, and just in general, just a different form of growth. Last thing, so yeah, I really look forward to jousting. What would you, this is just an overall, like, I've got a bunch of unicorns, of course. And what classes would you put together and say, hey, these guys are going to be the boss. These are going to be my top guys. Breeding wise, what should I be doing?
You're always going to want to optimize for power and speed with respect to the jousting loop. I think one of the things you need to understand is how we're structuring tournaments. So the beauty of the system that product and design kind of put together and engineering has implemented is tournaments will kind of work on a queue system. So at any time you can go to the jousting tab effectively and see upcoming tournaments, right? And the way the design team is structuring this is the requirements of those tournaments, right? Like you have to have a certain stat amount, you have to have a certain class, it has to be a single mythic or a double mythic, right? It gives design and product the ability to offer up a set of tournaments where wherever you kind of fall in whatever corns you have, there's probably a tournament that your corn would be competitive in. Now, if you're looking to get a winner's ticket, right, proceed to the weekend tournaments over the course of the preseason, optimizing for things like speed and power is certainly going to help. But there's a lot of depth behind the stance choice and the potions, right? Potions and the boosters are going to really add some interesting meta where it's like, if you have a unicorn, high speed, high stats, but let's say low intelligence, high speed or high power, but low intelligence, or say low endurance, like you can buff that with these, with these potions. So it's kind of like, definitely pick a higher stat corn over a lower stat corn as you're kind of sorting and filtering. But the point I'm kind of making is the tournaments themselves are going to be varied enough that you really want to think about, well, okay, if this is a cloud only tournament, like you might have a cloud corn you'd never enter in just a generic stat requirement tournament, right? But within the context of the cloud corns, you think that this one, could be pretty successful, if that makes sense.
Awesome. And the potions, when are those going to be put into the RMP so that we can start making those, prepping for, getting a lot of those built and made? Those going soon?
Yeah, I forget if it's in this tuning push today or the tuning push tomorrow. Let me look.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like it is in the tuning push today, according to the what's new in CU updates. So
Okay,
get
wow.
crafting.
Yeah, I'll do that. All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries.
Ooh.
Appreciate you coming up.
Thanks.
Woo-hoo.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Cool. Thanks for having me up here. Just want to ask quick questions, couple of quick questions. Is there any reason why we can't change the seed requirements to add an extra step where you convert your seeds into a seed powder and then you can just provide seed powder to the thingos? Because being a farmer of flowers, lands, about 25 of them, and then about an average of 5 land plots on each that take the pollen powder, which also needs flower seeds. And now this event has flower seeds. I can't get anywhere. If you know what I mean? Would there be a solution to balance it out, like making, instead of giving a actual seed, that you can just grind down any seed into a powder and then provide that?
Yeah, that's a challenge, man. To a certain extent, we want players to have all classes of unicorns as they scale their operation. Right. Like I understand people like certain classes over others and index towards those classes. Obviously, over the course of this event, the flower seeds will not have the buy pressure, right? That's going to rotate with the next milestone event, right? You're going to see us naturally rotate over time through the seeds of different classes. And so there will always be moments where certain seeds have certain pricing pressure. And the reality is, if you're a player who has accumulated a ton of seeds, you can potentially sell against that and earn an ROI. So it's not really something that we spend a lot of time going, well, what about the players who are just over optimized on one class? The reality is the vast majority of people, even who have optimized towards a class over time, have picked up floor corns and done a little bit of breeding to be able to do and craft certain class materials and things like that. So I get there is pressure on flower seeds. I'm also flower candy heavy right now. But it is kind of a natural thing to put and create situations where there's pressure on assets from certain classes. And the reality is, if you're constrained on those resources, it's problematic. If you have excess of those resources, you can sell against that curve. Like in my case, I had a decent chunk of flower seeds, right? And I still use a lot of flower seeds, but I was able to, sell against the market movements. So I'm just more making the point, Rubik, that it is intentional that we rotate the meta such that it puts pricing pressure on things. And at times it will strain and squeeze certain players. So I get the problem that you're kind of currently in, but it is a temporary problem that will get rotated out with the next milestone. As for the powder idea and stuff, I think over time we'll continue to make changes to the farm sim and adjust what you're crafting and all that kind of stuff. I think we've been a little remiss to make major changes because right now, new players coming in, planting seeds, farming berries, there's a path to them earning enough to be able to progress and stuff. So we have to kind of keep those considerations in mind. But I hear you. We're never trying to spike the price intentionally super high, but it's a little bit of a blunt instrument where we can certainly make the tuning changes, but we cannot predict behavior of certain players, right? And there is this tendency that we see of players to really hoard seeds that have them and not necessarily sell those seeds against movement. So, it's difficult to predict human behavior. So, we'll continue to try different ideas. But I'm sorry, it caused kind of this temporary strain on your flower heavy op. My flower candy op is kind of feeling that same pressure.
It's always hard though because of the pollen powder. So even without this event, it's like just struggle to stay on top of flower seeds all the time because of the always need them for like 5 or 6 plots of the 8 or 9 buildings that need pollen powder, which require our flower seeds. So you could rotate them around if you want as well, if you wouldn't mind. That'd be great. You kind of alluded to the answer of my next question. I was
Okay.
like, I'm just starting to follow the tweets and the verb apps and stuff, and seeing people are getting level 10 stuff and carts and 300 unicorns in their land plots and stuff, and I'm like, okay, so what? Where's the carrot for them? If they're all nearly getting to that point where they're maxed out, what's to stop all of a sudden the dump of everything taken out and breeding unicorns and taking them out and like selling them for profit, and like where's the is there a carrot in the future for them to keep on spending rather than taking out?
I mean, the carrot is pushing. It's kind of a combination of carrot and stick. Tribes is going to create situations where the tribe's location as a group collectively relative to other tribes and the dark forest, for example, is going to drive the risk reward of the yield that they're getting, right? And force competition amongst tribes as well as competition amongst the shadow corn versus unicorn holders. And so it's less of a how do we continue? What I said earlier around I think is what you were saying, I alluded to, is like the idea that infinite progression farm sim is just never going to be sustainable, because you're going to create this problem where everyone who was here early gets to the top, dumps against people who are new. Trying to balance that weirdness is how a lot of 4X strategy games actually fail, because the early players just gain so much power. They cannot be defeated. And so it's again about kind of pivoting the community more towards this eternal shadow corn to unicorn conflict and going much more in the direction of PvP. And people who are just like, shit, I just want to farm berries and not deal with this. It's like, fine, but if you're not contributing to the war effort, yield and things like that are, reduced. And the reality of yield is like the lower it is, the slower the progression, but you can still progress, right? A lot of the changes that we make when we do economic tightenings are really just kind of slowing down progression, or you could also look at like a difficulty increase. So tribes, the shadow corn conflict between the unicorns is how we're looking to pivot the farm sim over time. It's why we're taking so much time in the design and pre-production phase to make sure what we deliver to the community shows a really cohesive end-to-end narrative for how the economy with respect to the farm sim maintain sustainability over time. We could get somewhat lucky, and the drive of the battle loops, jousting, and people spending RBW to get tickets to compete in unicorn party matches, Rainbow Rumble over time. Obviously racing comes online, you've got another 90-10 sync. Like we could get enough of sync on the tokens just via the treasury rake on all of those loops that the farm sim can kind of be purposely yield heavy. But I think generally the reason that tribes is next as the major feature, obviously delegation will be a minor feature release compared to the size of tribes. But the reason tribes is next in the roadmap is specifically because we need to begin to point the economy at something that is more sustainable. And the idea is that it should be more fun for those who come in and like the more kind of like strategic MMO gameplay. And that it has a very high correlation with just long-term retention generally, right? Those games. And so the hope is that, yeah, we might lose some players who are just here to kind of farm yield. But the hope is we gain more players who are very interested in the strategic gameplay, which will have more risk and reward and kind of chances of loss and things of that nature, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's interesting. Good take. You did allude to the tribes being that sync, so but you didn't actually say that like you said, so that's quite interesting. The way it's going to take the direction. Also, I guess I wanted to talk about the point I made in the staking version 2 and make it clear that I support the reduction of what you've done, but I also felt that it's a bit of a miss not actually trying to tie it to the spend. I don't know how you could do it, and I knew the Rainbow Marketplace wasn't market maker. It wasn't the same. You're spreading it between each other, but surely there's an algorithm you could write that could detect how much has been taken out of the game, how much has been kept in the game, and then try and do and an emissions pool. So like you just do it in a 6-month lot, and then the next 6 months is that pool gets equally emits that amount of what that was accumulated over that 6 months. That's the way I'd look at doing it. And I just want to say one other thing, which isn't a question, but I did mention something about vultures and VCs, and I kind of probably shouldn't have said that, but I actually have been going through a bit of a personal issue with VCs at the moment. My job is funded by VCs. I work for a charity organization or an organization that builds software for charities, and our whole team work at about half the rate where they could get elsewhere just because they want to do this. And I haven't been paid for 2 months, and that day was a day we found out that will be used as pawns in arguments between two or three directors from different VCs trying to wield power and where the pawn's not getting paid. So last time I got paid was about the 20th of December. So yeah, I'm pretty bitter at the moment about VCs, and that's why that came out like that.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. And at the end of the day, I like I kind of said earlier, I always kind of I've gotten good at being like everybody's coming from a place where they really care, and yes, occasionally people are a little reactionary or just frustrated. And so anyway, I appreciate that the sharing the context that it wasn't necessarily something to do with us. I mean, I've been a software entrepreneur for like 13 years. VCs, we have a good set this time around. I've actually had to learn that VCs can be helpful in certain ways because I've had poor experiences, with VCs in the past, particularly our predecessor company where we had like Google Ventures and First Round and Sherpa and Greylock. And these are names that if you're a software entrepreneur, you would recognize. These are like high tier VCs. And I've seen kind of that dichotomy where, if you're a hot startup and a thing that has potential to return their fund, they're all in, they're very helpful. If you are a startup that's been through the roller coaster, beaten up a little bit, done a down round, like you're just off the list. And we've seen some of that with just the bear market this year and a couple of the investors that we had, but it's been much less. And simultaneous that with investors, huge shout out to Jan who put forward kind of the original or wrote the Delphi proposal. He's someone that I really trust and respect a lot. He plays the game daily, he sends me a lot of feedback, good, bad, and ugly, doesn't hold back. And he runs a big operation. He's super pumped for jousting and stuff. And I think you'll see that come through in the podcast. But yeah, it can be hit or miss on that front with VCs. And I've certainly learned that you can have they can create real negative drag on situations. And I think we're fortunate to have a very good set kind of across the board.
Yeah, these guys have literally got an email today saying they want to keep us. Like, we're just literally, are you kidding me? Like, we're just sitting here trying to hang around waiting to get paid and thinking we're going to get walked. And and
Never
one guy's about to have a baby. Another guy's in Nepal, on holidays, and he needs to pay to be able to get back here to Australia. It's like these people are just scumbags, mate. And it was
Never
literally
fun.
we
Never
work
fun.
for charity, mate. Like, we literally earn half as much as what anyone in tech gets, like literally half. And it's because we feel good about what we do, and these people are literally playing games using us as pawns on a chessboard to wield power. It's just ridiculous. So yeah. I'm a bit bitter at the moment about VCs, but I'm sure that Delphi's, they seem like a pretty good bunch of guys, and hopefully they can help you get that staking shit right. Thanks for having me up here, mate.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate all the feedback on the proposal. And, I think this initial cut is a first measure, and we can always look to reevaluate. I mean, we definitely threw out ideas around like, well, what if we tie emissions to the amount of staked RBW? Because that was a lot of the conversation was like, oh, if we reduce emissions, that's going to go down. And, we'll continue to evaluate. That is the beauty of these DAOs is they are designed through the voting and governance process to evolve over time, right? So I want to make it clear that long-term, very open to reevaluating that program and looking at how it can be improved. So appreciate you coming forward with all that. Sparkly Woody, I've got time for one more.
One more? Okay. Yeah.
If there is, if not, we can break and
No, man, I'm here all day, Chief. Let's do it. Okay, let's have a written question.
On it.
Okay, there's a lot.
There's
Yeah,
a
go
lot
ahead.
there's a lot actually. You
Yeah.
only have time for one more. I think there's like 15, 11 here. So
Yeah, I
oh
think we
Lord,
can answer
yeah,
the
I've only
rest.
got time for one.
for one.
Yeah, we
Alright.
can answer the rest later.
Okay.
Cool.
Let's ask the first question then. It's from SW Martin. Can we get an abstain option on snapshots so those active in governance but don't play the game aren't forced to choose yes or no on a proposal they don't understand in order to boost SRBW weight via badges?
That is a suggestion, Sam, that we have considered. Right now, Nessa is kind of working on. I mean, we're kind of calling it a constitution, but that's putting too much weight on it. We kind of put forward a blog post around here's what governance is and here's the process and all that kind of stuff. And I think what we want to do is formalize that and add a few things like, hey, there is a situation where like the council could completely block a vote from snapshot. We don't have a way to resolve that where like the SRBW holders, yes, we do a temperature check, but hey, there's not a way to, if the majority of SRBW holders want a proposal to go to snapshot to like override that. Are we comfortable as a community with the council having that much power? And maybe we are. And so there's kind of this memorialization of some of these like governance edge cases. And I think this would actually be a really good format when that comes forward to suggest this idea and see it if it gains support. I certainly don't have a problem with it. I would be a bit concerned that you'd start to see a bunch of people abstain from votes to get voting badges, right? So there's a little bit of consideration in there for that we would need to just think through. Generally, I want people to have an opinion on things. But I get in certain situations, you're just going to want to defer, right? There's other ideas that we have around allowing you to delegate votes to certain people and things, but anything that's kind of going to require a smart contract update, I don't really want to consider. So TLDR, Sam, look out for that kind of update from Vanessa on just trying to memorialize governance process, clear up edge cases, and that's something that we'll want the community to vote on and kind of memorialize. That would be a great format to suggest adding a abstain option to all single choice votes. And let's see if that has support within the community. And we can look to memorialize it at that time. Because I'd like to try and make kind of one large vote that memorializes a series of things versus them kind of one at a time. And so we're looking at it as kind of a multi-month process and something that maybe early Q2 goes to snapshot. So good time to suggest that, and let's talk more about it for sure.
All right, that is our final question for the town hall. Thank you so much for showing up. Any questions in the Town Hall 30 thread will be answered by me later on. And that concludes our Town Hall number 30. But we'll see you next week for the bi-weekly Town Hall number 31, this time with members of the G&D team. We'll post a recording of this Town Hall on our socials if you would like to give it a real listen. And don't forget to share this with your friends and fellow Unicorn fam who couldn't make it. If you have more burning questions, feel free to reach out on our support channels, the Mod Support channel and the Ask the Devs channel. This has been Sparkly Unicorn and Witty Unicorn, hosting Crypto Unicorn's co-founder and CEO, Aron Beierschmitt. Good morning, good night, and see you in game, Unicorn fam. Woo!
Woo!
Ooh.
Bye all.
Bye.